Right. Hello, everybody. Let's get ready a few minutes here to just get set up and going here live. We go live on this show. We don't record and edit. Started out doing that. Just got information out a day or two late. Want to get this information out to all of you as soon as possible and try to help you. We live in very trying times right now, and it is apparent to me and through the rest of this episode, extremely apparent to me that we are in a crisis that is being undefined by those who define the rules. So we'll give everybody just a couple minutes here to get settled in, get ready. Hopefully you've got some beverages or a snack or something. We're not going to be long today. We're going to be about 40, 45 minutes today. I think it's two basic topics I'm going to cover here today. I'm going to go through tariffs again. The one of the things that I found today is I just got a haircut, as you can see, or not, maybe, I don't know. But Freddie, the gentleman who cuts my hair, watches the show. Hey, Freddie, thank you so much for the great job today. We talked a little bit about some of the topics that we go through on this show, and it was great because he got to ask a lot of questions. And unfortunately, the chat feature doesn't work on this software. I'm going to be changing my software here pretty soon. I keep trying to get it to go, but as soon as I do, I'm more concerned about the connection than the chat. We'll certainly do a Q&A. I'm definitely going to do an Ask Me Anything on Telegram here in probably the next week or so as we approach the election. I think there's so many more important topics right now than the election itself, but the election itself is the biggest topic in the world. It's not just in this country. Every country in the world is sitting back wondering what's going to happen in the U.S. election because it impacts the rest of the world. So we're going to go through some of those things, but today we're going to go through, I'm going to title this thing, which I never do before I do an episode, but The Canary in the Coal Mine and The Man in the Arena. And I think that those are two really important things to think about here. So we're going to be a little more philosophical today than we are educational or statistical. And I hope that you all like it. So we're now at 9:34. We're going to get this thing started here. I'm going to give about another 10 seconds to get settled in for everybody online. And it's real late tonight, 9:30. My apologies. I wanted to get this in at 6:30, then it was 8:30. Now it's 9:30. Life has circumstances, and this is not my job or what I do for a living. So I try to get in the best times that I possibly can and get as much time on here as I possibly can just to provide a service and help y'all. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. This is the Rice Report. I'm Eric Rice. I'm honored to have you here. This is a totally organic, self-funded show. We need all your help that we can get in sharing the content, subscribing, do all that stuff the kids tell you to do, subscribe, pound, whatever the kids tell you to do. Could certainly use that help, but there's no revenue here. I get offered advertisers about twice a week for social media channels and for this podcast, and I just decline them until maybe I find a product that I can't live without or something like that, something that I would use. Maybe down the road we'll look at that, but for right now, totally confident and comfortable in the pathway that we're on with this show and keeping up with the information. So I do a lot of public speaking and a lot of investor conferences and macroeconomic overviews. I'm doing one on Thursday. It's a big topic. Before I get into this here on the show, I think it's important to note that as somebody who I don't consider myself an economist. Other people do that. I just consider myself somebody who pays attention to everything and understands markets very well. I've been in them for 20 plus years and in all facets, from trading to managing money to being an entrepreneur to lending money, of the whole thing. And one thing that's always obvious when I speak is is that people always say, all right, well, let's talk about the economy, but don't get political, which you have to get political when you want to understand money, because money is conducted by people and on markets, but it's regulated by laws. So regulation, politics, very important to understanding money. And of course, they ask me to do this, and I say, sure, I'll avoid politics. And within 5 minutes, I'm Alex Jones going into what's happening right now. It's just kind of the way I'm built. But this week, on Thursday, I'm doing a macro presentation online. And I was actually asked, I said, hey, before I do this, I always like to see what people want. I want to give people what the information that they're interested in, and not just what I'm interested in. And I said, well, survey your audience and let's find out what they want to talk about. And the overwhelming response from investors today is that they want a political overview, kind of a if this, then that. What are the two game theory scenarios if Harris wins, if Trump wins, which is really unusual. It tells you America is waking up to politics. That's why we do this show, money, politics, and religion. The three things they've told you never to talk about. And there's a reason for that. They want to dumb you down, get you uninterested, get you interested in things that don't matter. I was certainly part of that for most of my life. I love sports. I used to be way into sports. It wasn't getting me anywhere in life except entertaining me and dulling out my brain. And I started realizing there's just bigger things in life. So thank you. It's 9:30 right now, 9:37 Central Time. You have plenty of other things to do, but I find it interesting that investors are now wanting political information and an opinion on politics, which is just very unusual. So aside from that, let's get into money. We're going to get into politics. Religion's going to fit itself right into what we're doing when we get through politics. It's going to really just kind of ease itself along in the conversation we're going to have today. But I think it's important to note before we get started, I always try to stay in line with the format, and government spending is still out of control. We have people in North Carolina who are trying to get money from us. We are here to save each other. And the fact of the matter is there's no government money going into that area. That's the fact of the matter. The government money going into North Carolina and Tennessee is going into building very large government facilities, FEMA camps. These are really large facilities. I don't know if they're helping us or not. I have an interview. It's supposed to be yesterday, but they're busy. So hopefully tomorrow or Thursday, we'll have a couple guys from that area to give you a lowdown. But that money is not going there. We actually just authorized $5.2 billion more to Israel to commit genocide all over the place. If you don't believe that, you're a fool. That's just exactly what's happening. I'm kind of tired of the pleasantries with Israel. It is clearly a terrorist state that's using U.S.-funded taxpayer dollars to widen their lens, to expand their land. Totally different topic. We'll definitely get into that after the election. But however, we just authorized another $20 billion in loans as part of a $50 billion package coming from between Europe. The G20 companies are pulling in money. And of course, we're putting in the most money. Of course, like we have to, right? It's our greatest ally that's never given us a penny. In fact, the only thing they've really ever done financially for this country, which a person on my Telegram pointed out, is that after they destroyed the USS Liberty in the 60s on purpose, they paid $3.2 million to the families of the 34 fallen soldiers. So I guess that's a makeup call for loss of life, but I digress. 20 billion more is going to Ukraine. So $5.2 billion to Israel, 20 billion more to Ukraine as part of a $50 billion lending package. I've been recommending this book. A friend of mine, Bobby, recommended this book to me, and it's fantastic. It's called Confessions of an Economic Hitman by Mr. Perkins. It's about a 9.5-hour audio book. I don't have the physical book. That's probably the first audio book I've ever listened to. I generally read books. It is fascinating to know that in clandestine operations, our intelligence agency recruits people who they don't pay, who get jobs at corporations, who are actually sent all around the world to lend money to countries to make their top 5% even wealthier, embed their wealth, and then we use those countries for all natural. Now, we blame this on China. China does it too, but they learned it from us. This is how an empire expands in the common era. They don't need horses, guns, swords, soldiers, anything like that anymore. It's all done through economics. Excuse me. So we are sinking our teeth even deeper into Ukraine, but the only clear winners of the Ukrainian conflict right now are BlackRock and JP Morgan Chase, who have teamed up to offer right now half a trillion dollars to rebuild Ukraine. This is how the world really works. This is why wars are really fought. They're fought for money. So you're going to get more tax dollars to siphon off 10% for the big guy to fund war. You're going to pay, $19, $20 for a ballpoint pen. You're going to pay $6,000 for a plastic garbage can. All this money gets laundered out. What's left over gets sent over to foreign nations. They fight a war, they kill each other, they destroy the towns and cities around them. And then when it's all said and done and it's over with, then they bring in the American corporations to rebuild it, and they pay them with taxpayer dollars as well. So it literally is just a big money laundering scheme. But now Ukraine is getting another $50 billion in package. We have authorized almost $500 billion in the last 148 days. So in the last 148 days, while everyone's talking about Kamala Harris not working at McDonald's, Trump working at McDonald's, Eminem announcing all these other political distractions, our government is now continuing to loot the Treasury, and they've done it now to $500 billion in like 148, 149 days. So government spending is still out of control. We know that this is a big problem. But the canary in the coal mine, and mind you, most people don't know what that phrase means. Coal miners used to bring a canary in while they worked, and canaries are very sensitive to poisonous gases like carbon dioxide that we can't smell. And when the canaries stop singing or fall off of their perch and die, they know that there are poisonous gases, and then the coal miners evacuate. So they're used as a warning sign. I mean, that's what canaries and coal mines are. They're warning signs for coal miners. Now, in the economy, there's all kinds of warning signals, and I'm going to go through those in just a moment from your traditional macroeconomist and the things that they would look at to determine whether or not we're in a dangerous situation, a bullish or bearish situation, or a dangerous situation. Bullish and bearish are kind of normal markets. Markets do go up, markets do go down. There's no way around. That's how the world works. But then there are danger zones, and danger zones are pretty apparent. Gold is usually a canary in the coal mine for any sort of a bad market or downturn in the market. And gold has now hit yet another all-time high. As of close today, gold is at $2,736. $2,700. So if you've been following me for a couple of years, you'll know I told you to buy gold around $1,550. So you're almost at 100% return on gold if you bought it right around then. 100%. That is gold. Gold is a predictable 6 to 8% a year. Don't lose money. On occasion, you'll lose money in gold. If equities are really riding high, you'll lose money in gold. In general, Obama called it a barbarous relic. Gold is irrelevant. We don't need gold. It's a barbarous relic. Who needs gold? Well, central banks need gold because they're buying it like crazy right now. And they're also starting to push back on Bitcoin, which is fascinating to watch. I'm going to get into that in just a second. But gold at $2,736. Silver is at $3,502. That is a 12-year high, closing high for silver. Platinum is at $1,041. So I know I've been talking forever. I say gold, buy silver, raw land, oil and gas, Bitcoin, trade the VIX. I'm going to add something new because I kind of use gold and silver as a metaphor for precious metals. I think the best opportunity in precious metals right now is platinum. Platinum is trading at $1,041. It's all-time high. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's $22.95 or $22.50. So it's not even at halfway to its all-time high, while gold is past its all-time high, and silver is now about $14.50 below its all-time high. So the all-time high of silver is $49.50. It's at $35.02. Platinum is at $1,041 with an all-time high of around $2,300. So if you're looking for upside in your gains in your metals portfolio, I'd start looking into platinum. It's been a very moderate mover, been very flat between $950 and $1,100 for about 3.5 years right now, but it's really starting to move. It moves with silver. It's very similar to the market movements of silver. So I would certainly look into that. The VIX is around $18.20 right now. That is by no stretch of the imagination the all-time high or the all-time low, but it's in a great trading range. So if you're not into the VIX yet, do your research, make sure you're looking into it thoroughly. There's plenty of ETFs out there you can purchase. UVX, I think it's at $4.95 or something like that right now. So good opportunities in all those things. Bitcoin is at 67,124 as we speak. The interesting thing about Bitcoin, it doesn't sleep. It doesn't have a closing or an opening of a market. It's a 24-hour market. So essentially, since Bitcoin has been created, it's actually had more trading hours than the stock market has in the last 50 years. Very active, very liquid market. And I think at 67,124, almost a half a year, past a half a year into a halving, another good buying opportunity. And one of those areas I think we're going to see a lot of clarity coming out very soon about. And so I'd keep your eyes on those things. So the canary in the coal mine has always been gold. So gold is right now at its probably 10th or 12th all-time high as we speak. And this is causing ripple effects in the market that people don't understand. So from a money perspective, we're looking at something very rare. We just watched one of the largest rate drops in history. I mean, the central bank, the Federal Reserve, doesn't really drop rates by 0.5 point often. As I explained in past episodes, the last 2 times they did it were 2001, 2008. Both of those represented a 39 to 53% decline in the market over a 6 to 9 month period. I expect that to happen again, and it's becoming more evident right now because we're watching mortgage rates go up. The mortgage rates just went up to 6.8 today, and that's coinciding directly with the rise in bonds. So all of the government bond yields are now high. They're all really high. Mortgage rates are definitely backed off of these government bonds. So as government bond yields go up, you're going to see the mortgage rates go up. So we have an environment right now where the mortgage rates are going up. Home prices in many areas are still going up. Some places they're really starting to drop. And real estate is a very regional thing. So you have to look at it from the national average and the average home price, average purchase price, or average sale price of a home throughout the nation. Some pockets of the nation are already getting killed in real estate. Others are just kind of figuring it out right now. But high home prices, high mortgage prices, high government bond yields. The way that this works, because people asked me this question today, well, how can the government bond rates be going up when they just lowered federal funds rates? This is very simple. Bonds have a triple beam effect. So I'm going to get my hands on the screen here. They have a triple beam effect. I don't know where the camera is. So if prices go up, yields go down. So yields go up when prices go down. It works like that. Right now, the value of U.S. bonds are plummeting, which is why the rates are going up in these Treasury bonds, which are used as a backing facility. You're going to see a new rise in money market rates because those are based off of U.S. Treasuries, not Fed fund rates. You're seeing a rise in mortgage rates because when they buy a mortgage, they back it with Treasuries. What's really happening in that market is something I've been talking about for a long time with Treasury auctions. Every month, we auction off U.S. debt. Like cattle, we literally just go out and say, you know what, we're going to raise another, I don't know, $500 million or $2 billion or $10 billion, whatever they want to raise. And they put together a bond portfolio. And then they have an auction. So foreign nations are there. They can come in and pay in US dollars to buy more of our debt to get a yield. Well, those auctions are pathetic at this point in time. The demand is down about 40% from normal. So not many people are buying these U.S. Treasuries anymore because it's not backed by anything except for the confidence in the U.S. government, which is at an all-time low. So when we look at these things and the way they work, these bond rates are going up because the value of the bond is going down because there's no demand for the bond anymore. Nobody wants our bonds. When this stuff happens, you're looking at canary in the coal mine situations. So I went and looked through this, and you have to understand that these yield spikes are based on demand. Like point blank, if you're new to finance or you're worth a few $1 million and you may not know how this works. Demand for U.S. Treasuries is the benchmark for the entire economy and all the lending practices in this country and primarily around the world. So when the demand for our U.S. Treasuries is dropping as fast as it is right now, you're going to create a sovereign bond ripple effect throughout the entire world. Everything is tied to the U.S. Treasury, which no one's buying, which is evident by the fact that the yields are going up. This will have a big impact in the credit facility markets. So while the Fed fund rates may be going down and the central bank may be lowering its rate, the only thing that's helping is the government's ability to print more money. So we are definitely on a path to much higher inflation in the future. And this combined with multiple other indicators, as I talked about, I'm going to go through what a traditional macroeconomist would tell you if they had your best interests in mind and not their best interests in mind, by how many CNBC appearances they can get, how much money they can get as a public speaker, how much money they can get per click of people who read their articles. And most people don't want to read bad articles, by the way, financially. They want to read the opinion that tells them how bullish things are. Those get the most traffic. They get the most clicks traditionally when it comes to financial internet marketing. So I just used ChatGPT really quick and I said, what would a traditional economist consider indicators that would be similar to canary in the coal mine? Well, here's what they gave us. And ChatGPT is actually pretty good. Very biased in very many areas. I'm testing this. I'm doing ChatGPT about an hour a day to train my bot to be able to give me information I need on demand, which is a great function of AI, by the way. It's so much better to use ChatGPT and the AI function there than it is to use a search. And I always advise people use Brave or don't use Google. You're going to get very biased opinions. But the way traditional information search has worked is you search Google or Brave or any place, and you're going to get a bunch of articles you have to read. And it takes a long time to get basic information. Whereas ChatGPT AI reads those articles for you and pulls out the statistics you're looking for. So here's what ChatGPT told me a traditional macroeconomist would consider to be indicators similar to a stock market canary in the coal mine. Follow? High valuations. Price to earning ratios significantly above historical averages may suggest overvaluation. Our PE ratios for U.S. stocks are 4x every other country in the world. We have the highest valuations, price to earning ratios in the world. Number 2, rising interest rates. We have seen the fastest rise in interest rates since the 1970s. Now you could say we're in a decline era for rates. We had one rate drop in the past few years. So we're still in a rising interest rate environment. It says increasing rates can lead to higher borrowing costs and a reduction of consumer spending. Number 3, deteriorating economic data. You can't make this up. Indicators such as declining GDP, our real GDP has been declining since 2020. They continue to cover it up. I'm telling you, it is now 8 days away from what I think is the most important GDP report before an election that you'll ever see. I'm almost positive that almost all of the profits that will drive the GDP into it won't show up negative. It'll certainly show up 4.5% GDP growth. That will all because we're replacing military equipment that we're sending to foreign nations to bomb innocent people. That's what's going to happen. But deteriorating economic data, indicators is declining GDP, rising unemployment, we're definitely there. Falling consumer confidence that has been at an all-time low for the last 4.5 months, and these all signal economic weakness. So we're already 3 for 3. Number 4 for 4. High debt levels. Elevated corporate and consumer debt can lead to financial instability. We have all-time highs in corporate debt and credit card debt and mortgage debt in this country. We're at almost $1.4 trillion in credit card debt. That's for consumers alone. Number 5, market volatility. Increased volatility and sudden price swings can indicate uncertainty among investors. We have market volatility that you can't explain right now. We have oil prices acting like we're in a recession, market prices acting like we're in an economic boom, rising unemployment. The system is short-circuiting in front of you. Whether you want to pay attention to that and or not is up to you. Whether it matters to you or not is completely up to you, but I think through crisis there's opportunity, especially financially if you're prepared. Declining market breadth. A shrinking number of stocks participating in market gains can suggest weakness weakness beneath the surface, okay? I've been talking about the stock market being a medicine ball balancing on a baseball bat for absolutely over a year. I think I've been giving that analogy for maybe a few months. We have one company, NVIDIA, who their market valuation is now equivalent to 11.7% of the entire nation's GDP. One company's valuation is 11.7% of the GDP. That is absolutely the definition of declining market breadth. Inverted yield curve. When short-term interest rates exceed long-term interest rates, it can signal an impending recession. Are you following these? Number 7, this is 7. We're 7 for 7. We hit all 7 traditional macroeconomic indicators for market declines and bad economies. All 7 for 7. The yield curve we just went through was almost 650 days. That is 100 days longer than the longest ever inverted yield curve in U.S. history. Every single macroeconomic indicator for a market crash is signaled. All 7 for 7. We're batting 1,000. We'll be in the Hall of Fame. Yet you continue to see MarketWatch putting out article after article. Now, they put out 10 articles about how bullish they are in the stock market, and one of them warning that it might be bad. You can look at CNBC. They have the same thing. There's no, they scare you about COVID. They scare you about everything except your money. Why is that? Because that's how they have control over a society. They're the money printer. They don't want you to make money because if you make money, you'll be financially free. And if you're financially free, you don't have to listen. I'm here to try to tell you to be a beacon of logic. Light, that's up to you, but a beacon of logic to let you know that the current environment you're in a traditional normal world where people weren't corrupt or blind or stupid, they would all be telling you that we are approaching a very difficult, tumultuous time in the marketplace, and you're not hearing that anywhere except for independent journalists, podcasters like me, and people who have the courage to defy the overall traditions of the marketplace. So let's just say the canary in the coal mine is gold. And when gold hits its all-time high, what does that tell you? It tells you everyone is in what's called flight to quality. When people anticipate a market fall or a market crash, they try to find places that are safe. Gold is definitely a place of safety. It is not a place of profit traditionally. I look at gold in my portfolio as a way of not losing money. The money I have in gold, I'm not going to lose. I'm happy with that. That's a great place to have money when you're worried about the markets and the dollar and the value of currency. I look at Bitcoin as an investment. I look at gold as a savings account, and I look at cash as spending money. That's the way I view liquid assets at this point in time. Even money market accounts. If you have a money market account, you feel safe. You are safe, by the way. Those are very safe places to have money. But if you're in those, if you're lucky, you're getting 5.25% yield, put it in gold. If you're not going to use that money and you don't have any liquid point, put it in gold. I've gotten 100% return in gold, almost 100% return on my gold in the last 2.5 years. That is far outpacing everything else, but it's inconvenient. You got to go buy it. You got to store it. You got to shelve it, house it, and then you have to sell it. It's not as liquid. That's why I have Bitcoin. Bitcoin is my stock market. That's my liquid up and down volatility market that'll make me the biggest percentage return in the near future. So keep that in mind. Now, that's pretty much what I have for you in the market today. It's just a warning signal. I think it's fascinating to look at something as basic and simple as ChatGPT and ask them the warning signs of a bad economy or a falling market. And all 7 of those things are checked if you actually know the numbers. Now, the government's not telling you these things, and that's by design. Their intention is to destroy the middle class. And the middle class primarily has all their money in the stock market. By the way, the fear and greed indicator in the marketplace is still at severe greed. People still think this thing is going up, and they may be right. I may be wrong. I'm not sitting here trying to say I'm Reistradamus and I know all these things. I'm just a guy in a guest room trying to help you out. And I've been doing very well for myself. And I think that warning signs are super important. Even if you're wrong, be cautious with your money, because the intention of a communist takeover is to destroy the middle class who needs investments to outpace inflation so they can retire, raise kids, own a home, maybe buy a business or a second home or an investment property. This class of citizenry that is not paying attention is going to get slaughtered like lamb in the coming future. And I make no bones about saying that. Every single statistical indicator and historical marker is in place for us to have at least a 50% correction in the stock market, which the immediate response from people who don't believe what I'm telling them, which are all historical facts, the pushback I get from that is, well, that's what markets do. They go up and down. It'll be back. Sure. I mean, I can't argue with that reasoning. That's absolutely true. But if you want to be the dummy that just lives and dies by the rising tides of the boats, you're going to end up in the harbor shipwrecked eventually at some point in time. And I would rather see people earning 20% while everybody else is losing 50%, because that makes for a better world. If you have more money in your pocket, we all have a better environment, because it's very clear to us at this point in time, we need our money. If there wasn't savings accounts being used to help people in Tennessee and North Carolina, our death total would be much higher than it is right now. And we still don't know what the death total is there at all. So it's important that we have our own money and don't rely on the government. That's exactly what they want, is for us to rely on them for everything. So pay attention to this, talk to your family, give them this episode, give them past episodes if there's one that you like that walks through the economy. Every single canary in the coal mine indicator is now checked. It's just a matter of a waiting game to see how long they can prop it up, which will probably be propped up through the election. I fully expect the election to take place on November 5th. I fully expect that. For all the people who are telling me JD Vance will be replaced, they're the same ones telling me there won't be. There's going to be an election on November 5th. It's going to be a debacle. There won't be any pipes being burst, but I guarantee there's going to be a cyber attack on at least 4 or 5 locations in Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin. And we'll have to hold off. We don't know. So we're going to get into politics right now. I think it's very important to go through that. From a political standpoint, early voting has always begun. I talked about this in my prayer group today. I've been saying I'm going to vote on voting day. I'm not. I'm actually going to go vote tomorrow. My wife is a poll worker at a local area here, so at least there's somebody good watching the polls there. It's 50-50 Republican and Democrat here in Texas, so very fair and balanced. I'm going to go bring her lunch tomorrow. I'm going to vote tomorrow. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump tomorrow. Make no bones about it. That's what's going to happen. And I'm going to give you information of what I see, because I'm right outside Dallas. And in Dallas, we've already had multiple issues. There have been at least 100 people who've made videos online, live streams, showing that they voted for Trump, yet they went home, checked their vote, and registered for Harris. This is over 100 people. They are now in the Dallas area. They are now giving you ballots that have the wrong precinct, which means that your vote will not count. If this is happening in Dallas, this is happening in Ohio, this is happening in Pennsylvania, this is happening in Florida, the government's never going to tell you about it. So it's so important during this election season that you pay attention to social media, see what's happening in your local area so you can do the right things when you vote. Now, we have to vote. I am one of these people. I know my vote doesn't count. Okay. I know they cheat in elections. I know that I'm going to vote anyway. As an American, I really don't have anything better to do between now and November 5th. There's nothing more important that I can do with my time aside from spending time with my children. So I'm going to take some time out while they're at school. I'm going to go vote. I'm going to bring my wife lunch. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I'm going to tell you what happens tomorrow. But through this election, we're seeing some really interesting things coming out. And I think it's so important to understand before I get into all this. that you are the man in the arena. As we break down the U.S. political election for the year 2024, this is not like every other year. I have so many people that are calling me. This morning I woke up to 4 calls. This is people calling me before 8 a.m. And they were all asking me questions about the election, about the candidates, some stuff that is reality that you might still consider to be conspiracy theory. I've never had these type of conversations with so many people. It happens all the time. No matter where I'm going right now, somebody is asking me questions about these things. And then I have friends overseas. I have people I know overseas. I'm interviewing a guy from England tomorrow, and I'll be happy to. I might stream that. I don't know if I'll stream it or record it. But I want to hear what's happening over there, because another friend of mine in London I talked to 2 weeks ago, and he goes, "Eric, why are you so calm?" And I said, "Well, that's just kind of the way I am. I used to be a fireball, and I find life to be much better as a calm person." And he said, "Well, how can you be so calm with this election coming up?" And I go, I'm one vote, I'm one person. I could try to control what I can control. And he says to me, he goes, "Eric, everyone in our country is on edge about the U.S. election." That's England, just north of London. Everyone I've talked to overseas has their eyes on the U.S. election. Basically, the United States is the arena, and we are the man in the arena. And I think it's a good time to read this thing that I'm putting on the wall behind me. The Man in the Arena by Theodore Roosevelt. Such a good poem, speaks volumes. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how a strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So that is his place, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So it's pretty easy to live a life in America right now where there's just so many famous people and everybody's famous, and guy makes fart videos on TikTok, he makes $2 million, to just think that your life is irrelevant and that your vote doesn't count. Because I think that way too. Not that my vote counts. I don't know if they'll count it. That's the thing. 2020 was a rigged election. Since I'm already getting flagged on everything from weather modification to climate change on all of these platforms, the 2020 election was rigged. This election is probably going to be rigged as well. But you are the man in the arena. This is the one thing you can do every 4 years that actually matters. What else do you have to do? Get out there and do it. Get out there and vote. Vote biblically. I tell people all the time, I actually talked about this in my prayer group today. These people calling me, who do I vote for? And I say, are you serious? We go to church with them. They're Christians. You serious? This is a question you're asking me? Yeah, no, I want to know. I just, I don't like Donald Trump. Okay. What's the question you're at? Who should I vote for? Well, that's up to you. But, how would you suggest I go about it? The same way I would suggest you go about everything else. Who lines up with your values? Who lines up with biblical teachings? Who lines up with the image of Jesus Christ? By the way, none of them do. In a perfect world, in a world that would be perfect, no dying economy, no communist takeover, no crazy, children pretending to be cats with litter boxes in their schools, no critical race theory, none of these pressing issues that we have today. If those didn't exist and we were, in 1951 and just sitting there, one person works, taxes weren't too bad. In that perfect world, Donald Trump would be at the bottom of the pile of people that you would say is perfect to be president of the United States. He is not perfect. He's extremely flawed. He's crude. He's crass. You can accuse him of not being presidential all you'd like. And you're right. And that's fine. We don't live in those times. This isn't those times. We don't have the luxury of a perfect world. What we do have is a sliding scale over all of history. Most people right now that I hear are voting for Harris are much older. They're 60s, 70s, 80s. And I ask them why. Well, I'm a Democrat. And I go, okay, so you're a communist. No, I'm a Democrat. I go, okay, listen, maybe you haven't seen what has been happening over the past 50 years, especially the last 10. But the Democratic Party is no longer a Democratic Party. The Republican Party is also no longer the Republican Party. Over the last 50 years, the scale has slid consistently to the left. Today's Republican is yesterday's JFK Democrat. There's really no difference. Look at the policy plans of JFK and Trump. They're not much different. The difference is on the left-hand side that they went from blue-collar, working class to the elite, the coastal elite, the communist, the internationalist, the globalist, all the ists, all the isms. You know where all those come from. If you know where the ists and the isms come from. But they've slid so far to the left that they are no longer recognizable. And I think that after 50 years of voting in the same way, because you became a Democrat when JFK was there, or maybe you were a Mondale person or whatever you were, that is not the same political party at all. And now we have a nation of people who are still confused there. And of course, you have the younger people who know what the left is and they don't care. They actually have been taught communism and socialism are better structures in their schools for the past 2.5 decades. That's the reality. But you are the man in the arena. Your vote, the American people are the men in the arena. America is the arena that the world is watching. They're watching everything that we do. They're watching every step that we take to counter what's happening because it's already happening in their countries. Talk to people in Australia, England. We're still better off than they are right now. It's terrible over in those places. Their open borders have been open for a decade, not 4 years, a decade. They're flooded. These are all long-term plans, completely derived to dilute and pollute the actual people of a nation so that that nation becomes unrecognizable, has no patriotism left, doesn't care, doesn't have an image, doesn't have a culture. Then you don't really care who the president is because you don't know who you are. It's kind of the fundamental thing I talk about with people. When they're asking me to vote, I said, listen, vote biblically. Who cares about who the people are? They don't matter. Politicians do nothing but make laws. That's what they are. That's why so many politicians are former or current lawyers. They're lawmakers. Laws tell you what you can and can't do to avoid being incarcerated or being free. That's all they do. The real change in this country is going to come from us, not from Donald Trump. He's one man. Not from anybody who works with him, period. The changes in this country, laws aren't going to change the direction of this country. It's just going to make it easier for that change. It's going to facilitate the change that the American people must do on their own. And I always go back to my original discovery of politics. When I figured out politics late in college, early career, I figured out that there were two parties, very smart. But the two parties had two basic premises. Back in the early 2000s, late 1990s, the death penalty was a big topic. Politics used to be about the death penalty and lowered taxes. That was it. It was a much simpler time. You voted for the person that lowered your taxes and then either killed or kept alive, convicted murderers, felons, rapists, the lowest of low in society. But then in the 90s and the 2000s, the party changed. And then abortion became the main topic. And like I'm tired of talking about abortion. So let's talk about abortion. So I tell these 4 people call me this morning, where do I vote? Who do I do? It's pretty simple. The Democrat Party for the last 25 years, at least, as I've been involved in politics, has a simple, very boiled down version of what Democrats stand for. They want to kill babies and save murderers, right? That's it. When death penalty, why would you... These are just people who made mistakes. They shouldn't die. Yes, they should. Decisions have consequences. The people you killed didn't have a decision. You're a convicted multi-murderer and the death penalty was what was judged upon you by the court of law. You need to go. And that was a topic of discussion for decades. We haven't talked about the death penalty in this country for a long time because we've been talking about all these other crazy things. But the Democrat Party boils down into kill babies, pro-abortion, and save murderers. No death penalty. That's what it was back then. So the opposite is true on the Republican side. Save babies, execute murderers. So in my younger days, I was a registered Republican because I believed in saving babies and executing bad people. However, both of those two stances have changed, but nonetheless, the core principles are still there. So if you have family members that are debating, I hate Trump. Listen, I don't think any of us in a perfect world would pick Donald Trump to be our number one choice for president in the world. It's kind of like reading a line or a sentence out of a magazine without giving the full context of the article. Content and context matter. Donald Trump is the content. Would his content fit into another article? Probably not. In today's world, he's definitely the perfect man for the job. He has stood up against tyranny for years. He has been calling out the economic buffoonery in our government for decades. He has stood the test of time in front of every sort of psychological operation and even legal operation formed against him, and he remains calm. He remains fighting. He's been shot at. He has had multiple assassination attempts on his life, and he still goes to McDonald's and serves French fries. Is he the perfect candidate for America? Probably not. Is he the perfect candidate for America in 2024? Absolutely. That's the thing we have to do, is get rid of this personality thing. Oh, I don't like his personality. Listen, if you're dying, you have a heart issue, you go to the hospital and they tell you this is the greatest heart surgeon in the world. This guy is going to save your life. Are you going to say, well, I really don't like him because he's kind of a jerk? Give me another surgeon who's terrible at this. That's essentially what America is saying. Now, I hope people aren't put in that life and death situation. I had 2 friends lose parents today. I hope no one's in that life or death situation from their own perspective, but this nation is in that life and death situation right now, and most people don't even realize it. They don't even realize how close we are to being fully conquered. That's one of the more fascinating things about the time we live in, is people don't see it. If you've been watching the show, you're watching the show, you know that I see it. You know I try to explain it as simply as I possibly can. But Trump is the only option. There is no other option. Any other choice, someone is choosing based on personality. And I pray to God that they are never put in a situation where they have to choose the best surgeon in the world based on his personality. I saw that app being developed in 2011, walked away from it immediately, where they were trying to brainwash the world into, well, bedside manner is what matters most. No, it doesn't. Give me the biggest a-hole in the world for a doctor when I'm sick. I don't care if you are nice. I don't care if you call me names. Fix my body. Give me a jerk for a mechanic. Fix my car. Give me a jerk for a president. Fix my country. That's the job that needs to be done. That's what he has been doing. That's what he will continue to do as far as I can see. But I do hope that we don't idolize him. He's not a perfect man. Seems like a good man to me because I've watched everything. Right? I haven't just watched clips of what people want me to see about him. I've seen him speak in public multiple times, right in front of me. He's a good man. Is he a great man? I don't know. Does he believe in God? I don't know. I don't know the man, but he is the only president I've heard in a very long time praise Jesus Christ on stage, while the other candidate tells you if you praise Jesus, you're at the wrong rally. This couldn't be simpler out there. Now, I do want to get into the basic topic of this McDonald's thing because it's just fascinating to me, and we're going to wrap this up pretty quick tonight. So Trump shows up at a McDonald's, and he does it simply to troll Kamala Harris, who lied about working at McDonald's. I actually just had a conversation about this with my mother-in-law, God bless her soul. And, she watches the other news. I don't watch the news at all. I find my own information. But she says, well, I can't believe that he did that, right? Because AOC was on stage saying, they're making fun of us. He's not making fun of you. He's trolling his candidate and actually doing it in a brilliant, funny, and entertaining way. But then they made him look like a jerk for closing down the McDonald's. These people couldn't work today. That man has been shot. They shot at him. You think he's going to walk into an open forum, McDonald's and announce it ahead of time where another assassin can get him? He has to shut it down. By the way, I lived in Los Angeles for years, and every time Barack Obama would come to Los Angeles, the entire city shut down. It took me 45 minutes to go a mile and a half when Obama was in town. So he can shut down an entire city, but Trump can't shut down a McDonald's. And by the way, every person who pulled in that drive-thru had a grin ear to ear and thanked him and wished him well. He paid for all that food. He funded that McDonald's for the day. I actually would not be surprised to find out that the people who couldn't work that day he will actually put a full day's pay on their paycheck. He does stuff like that, and the news doesn't tell you about it. But it's very fascinating that he brings light to McDonald's, and 48 hours later, McDonald's has an E. coli breakout, if you believe that's real. The stock plummets all day long. This has been this really shows the personality and where people are at in America. So many chat boards, people are, there's a picture of a quarter pounder and it says, McDonald's E. coli breakout. They're recalling things. 47 people are ill. Listen, 47 people a day get sick on McDonald's no matter what. It's not real food. When you can put a hamburger in a glass box for 40 years and it's still there, that's not food. When wild animals won't eat a beef patty from McDonald's, it's not real food. And 3 times so far, they have produced reports that there's human meat in those patties. It's not real food, okay? E. coli and Donald Trump had nothing to do with McDonald's making people sick. McDonald's is in the business of making people sick. McDonald's gets 100% of their potatoes for French fries from a Bill Gates farm, okay? This is part of Big Pharma. McDonald's, the fast food organizations, the whole thing. They make you sick. The doctors give you a diagnosis, and the pharma gives you pills for the rest of your life and never tells you to stop eating McDonald's. Doesn't tell you to pray, meditate, fast, eat organic, eat real. They don't tell you that. It's part of the system. So it's very interesting to me, the timing behind this E. coli breakout, which is, by the way, like the 5th or 6th E. coli breakout in the past 5 years. None of them have made anybody I know sick. It's also an attack on the food supply. That's definitely part of where we're at. Another interesting thing in this campaign that I just find fascinating, Candace Owen has been putting out whether you like her or not. I don't know if I particularly like her. She talks, I actually think she's great, but I don't know if I like her or not. And that doesn't matter because I don't look to people whether I like them or not. I look for the information they're giving. And if you can show me definitively where Candace Owens has been wrong on the topics she's covered for the past 4.5 to 5 months, I'll be happy to say I'm wrong. She's right, whether you like her or not. And I think she's a very good media person, great broadcaster. Now, she has been digging in on Kamala Harris's genealogy for the better part of a month. She's not black. Let's just get that out of the way. She's actually found watch her show. I'm not going to, take her content. Watch her shows. She's been putting out bounties for people that'll give her information. And I can't wait for the day where I actually have sponsors and things and I can do that too, because it's genius to crowdsource information. But her show today actually revealed that not only is she not black, she's not really white either. She actually has Jewish heritage. You can't make these things up. This happens every single time. This is just fascinating, the lies that are told. She didn't work at McDonald's. She's not black. She's actually Jewish. It just goes on and on. I mean, if you know, you know. That's just the way it is. But on top of this, so that's a fascinating thing to put on the sideline. On top of this, Michael Jeffries of Abercrombie and Fitch has now been indicted on sex trafficking allegations, and he is a direct partner of Epstein. In fact, he might be one of the unnamed people in the Epstein case. Michael Jeffries is another pervert on high with power that all happen to have the same things in common when you really research their background. It's just a very strange thing that they won't allow me to say on YouTube, which I'll eventually say after the election. They all have something in common. And he was definitely intertwined with Epstein. If you read the court documents that just came out, I think that was Pepe Ultra something on Telegram, try to give credit where credit's due. Pull off all of the pages. This guy was recruiting heterosexual sex workers and models and basically forcing them into Diddy activities. We have to come to the realization that the people in power in this country are perverted, horribly perverted, awful people. We really do have to come to conclusions there. They promote hedonism. They live hedonistic lifestyles. They live on fraud. Our government is a complete Ponzi scheme that steals from us with every single opportunity. And the only people who profit from this are the mega corporations and the corporations that own them. Essentially, any corporation right now that has a mainstream, well-known name, they're run by a psychopath. And this is now evidence with, Abercrombie. Victoria's Secret. The list goes on and on. You're gonna find out over the coming years that I'm absolutely 100% right on this, and it's already been validated by many researchers online. But I found that to be absolutely one of the most incredible things. So we will find out all this information. We will come to find out that Tim Walz is not as Tim Walz appears. These are literally the worst people in the world, and people who are voting for them have. I don't want to say anything negative because we're not in that space yet. We have a lot of people in this country who need prayers, who need help, and we are in an environment right now that we are in complete limbo as to what will happen. We already know that Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, the heads of their election boards, have already come out and told us, listen, guys, it's all the same excuses. Imagine the worst employee you've ever had at work, the worst co-worker you've ever had who never gets his job done on time, constantly complains. These are the people who run the government. So we've actually seen a record amount of people registering to vote. Or even our church, they actually have a booth you can register to vote at church, which is unique. I've never seen that, so that was great. But we probably have 35 or 40 million more voters than we had last presidential election. Last presidential election, there were 131 or 133 million registered voters. We got 150 million votes, and no one said anything. Well, we did, but nobody said anything of any position of power. They just, whatever. It's just an anomaly. He got 80-something million votes. This is your president. Totally legit. We now have 35 million more voters, right? So we're at 165 million voters. Doesn't mean they'll all vote. They're just registered to vote. Many people are not voting, and that's fine. That's their choice. But we are seeing the anomalies coming out. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania for sure have already come out and said, due to all the new voters in the system, we anticipate it's going to take at least a week after election day to count it. They've already set up the steel. They're already setting it up. All the mail. There was videotape earlier today that came out. I think it was in Pennsylvania. A mail worker was caught dumping buckets and buckets of ballots into a garbage can. This is already happening again. Okay, I've been telling people, and it's not for a lack of effort. Okay, there are plenty of people out there that are fighting the election system and trying to do good. But the mere fact of the matter is, in the past 4 years, there haven't been many changes to the election system. We're still using Dominion voting machines. They're still flipping votes 30 miles from my house. 30 miles from my house, they're already still flipping votes. There are 100 people that have voted for Trump that went home and their Trump said Harris. They've had to go in 3 or 4 times now to change their vote. I don't expect anything different to come about here. I really don't. Remember back in 2016, exactly 2 weeks before the election, Hillary Clinton was favored to win that election 92% to 8. 92 to 8. Trump is now favored 68 to 32. We don't know what's going to happen. What I think is going to happen is irrelevant because it's just what I think is going to happen. But I've been saying this for very long. Most of the country, 75, 80% of the voters are going to vote for Trump because they're tired of what's happening. It's going to take them 2 weeks to count it. We're going to have a cyber attack. We're going to have one building that loses power. There's going to be a grid that goes down. They can't do a pipe burst anymore. No one's going to buy that. Plus, if you have a cyber attack, it takes out the cameras. If you shut down the grid, it takes out the cameras. The pipe burst didn't work because the cameras stayed on. So we got to watch the actual poll workers stuffing ballots, and still none of those people have gone to jail. Just for reference of fact, none of those people have gone to jail yet. Still. So they're setting up the same thing. The difference will be that it has to be bigger. It has to be more covert. So the only way you can do covert is through an actual attack on the grid or a cyber shutdown of buildings, because the cameras being on is what caught them. So I would expect that to happen. I expect after 6 or 7 days, maybe 10 or 12, that they come out and say, listen, guys, this was by far the most free and fair election you've ever seen. And unfortunately, for most of you, you're going to be upset because she won by 0.44%, 0.89%, whatever it is. She won by 10,000 votes in Michigan and 12,000 in Pennsylvania and 14,000 in Georgia. It's not going to be any different. It's my opinion. I'm not trying to be a black pill, or it's just what I see happening. But then I see the country going, wait a minute, everyone we talked to voted for Trump. We're going to do something here. And whatever that constitutional crisis calls for, because we have no precedent for this. We have a constitutional crisis, an economic crisis, a societal crisis, actual crises in North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee. We have war crises overseas. We have a migration crisis here. We have a weather crisis here. We have a surveillance state crisis. The merging and converging of all these crises into one area is going to create a situation where absolutely no one but God will be able to predict what happens next. But I do predict that they are going to steal this election, and we'll go through court battles for a long time, just like we did in 2020. Hopefully this time someone will have standing, but that's one scenario. Another scenario is we actually have a free and fair election. I give that a weighting of less than 1.5%. But if that happens, Donald Trump is going to win that election, and we are going to hear nothing but liberal tears for the next 4 years. Like, prepare for that. The other scenario we're looking at is that scenario number 2, where there's a free and fair election or not free and fair election, and maybe the rigging doesn't work and they have to announce him as a winner. That's when I think we start to see the market crash, the migration problem boil to the surface, crime problems boil to the surface. This election is an election. You're electing someone, you're electing a CEO to build a company. You want a CEO who recruits a good team. Trump recruited a terrible team his last time. I think he learned from that because he's an entrepreneur. So he's going to learn you need a strong team in order to be a strong leader. And I think he'll pick a better team this time. What we know for sure is that the team that's in place right now is half retarded and are communist. So if we want retarded people who believe in communist countries, vote for them. You've already got that. If you like that, do it. It's totally your free will to exercise. For the rest of us, we want to bring a leader in who will build a strong company or country. Well, same thing. You know, we have been a United States corporation for quite some time. So you want a CEO who can lead that corporation in the right way with the right team. I don't know. I'm very suspect of many of the people in the Trump cabinet as we speak, but they're still better than what he had before, and they're definitely better than what exists today. But nonetheless, what we're going to have to do is realize that eventually this country is going to have to you are going to have to take a stand, voice your opinion, make some tough decisions, and ultimately the American people, we prevail. 250 years, we don't lose. We may lose elections, we may lose things like that, but we don't generally lose as a nation. So no matter what happens November 5th, it really doesn't, whatever happens, there'll be an action and a reaction, a punch and a counterpunch, and we'll figure out what goes on there. And those are just my opinions. I'm a nobody. I'm a literal nobody in this world. Don't listen to me. Listen to yourself, pray, listen to God. But I think the thing that we're going to find out, even if there is an election, the recession, quote unquote, is definitely going to begin when Trump's in office. He's coming into office. Like, I don't see any way for the American people, if they say she won, okay, well, let's just forget about it and move on, turn the page. I don't see that scenario happening. There's far too, I'm wearing a free Trump shirt right now. People are far too excited. They want him back in. He's going to be back in. But I think that after watching this for 4 consecutive years, talking about it nonstop, seeing the way things work, learning the systems and how they can rig them, I think that part of the plan that they have right now, or the plan in general, is actually for him to get back in after some strife, after some conflict, and then the crashes begin, because they have to take blame. Like the market's not going to crash in the next 2 weeks. I mean, maybe it will. I have no idea. But I don't think it's going to crash in the next 2 weeks. They've been propping it up for 4 years with Band-Aids and super glue. I don't anticipate. I think that's going to happen after he's in office, because you've got to remember the enemy has to be able to continually attack. So if the market crashed under Biden, Harris, whoever that guy is, whoever that chick is, they would take the blame. So I think you're going to look at the market crash once he's elected or after inauguration date. Either way, I think from my opinion, my standpoint is that the time between November 5th and January 21st of 2025 will be the most volatile time in U.S. history. I'm actually very impressed with how calm and peaceful the United States people are right now. I'm actually very proud of my country and my countrymen that are acting with civility and just doing their civil duty, going to vote and voicing their opinion and doing podcasts and tweeting and posting and trying to do everything they can to help their fellow citizens. But I think that we're looking at this very volatile time in front of us, and there's nothing more important during volatility. Money is nice, politics are interesting. It's all about God. If we don't bring back morality to a demoralized nation, it doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter. Again, the communist process to take over a nation is to demoralize, destabilize, create a crisis, and normalize dystopia. that is well written, well documented through multiple platforms and people and interviews and books and white papers and historical documents. We are already demoralized. There are no more morals. Morals don't exist in this country. The most popular TV shows that exist today are all about lying and cheating systems. You look at Big Brother, or they're about judging other people. Like we don't have a moral society. We are now being destabilized. The next level of destabilization in this country would be economic. So looking at it from the enemy standpoint, we've already demoralized them. They will already do anything for money. That's what a falling economy does. It creates crime because you'll do anything to feed your family or to feed yourself. So we go from demoralized to destabilized. We're partially destabilized from the migrant crisis and some of the other things, but the destabilization period and the crisis period that are coming, and they will come, because these things they didn't think of them yesterday. They wrote these plans, really started documenting this time in history in 1871. A gentleman named Albert Pike, one of the most famous demonic masons of all time, predicted World War I and World War II perfectly, and World War III is going to go the same way unless someone stops it. And no one stopped the first two, and everyone saw the letter in 1871. He wrote a book called Dogmas and Morals and Dogma, and specifically talked about this era. So like if you want to read a book about history that's kind of frightening, get Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, 1871. Read it. It's actually fairly interesting. Good writer, by the way. They spoke better then. They actually had morals in those, even demonic people like Albert Pike. But nonetheless, we'll have this demoralization problem. We have children overdosing. We have kids in my hometown with cardiac arrest and seizures every day, it feels like, and no one ever questions the vaccine. Like no one ever says, well, were those kids vaccinated? They're 16, 17 years old. They're on dance teams, football teams. They're just collapsing. We're demoralized. We're desensitized. That part's done. Destabilization, I think the next phase is destabilization. And I think the destabilization phase comes through an economic collapse, which more than likely will happen either after Trump is elected or after he gets into office, because then they can really demonize him and blame it on him when every logical, normal person in the world knows it's not his fault. But it's still going to happen. Then we'll have a crisis, which is already brewing in the Middle East. Israel is extending its land. This is a land grab, plain and simple. They've also written books. You want to do some real research? Go on Twitter, go on any other platform, and look at all the people who are using AI to translate the television shows that come out of Tel Aviv. They're telling you what's happening. They're laughing in your face. And that's the reality. You can defend them all you like. You can defend them every single time if you want. You certainly can. But at the end of the day, they're still going to swindle the American people. JFK talked about it. I can't trust the people from Israel because they don't tell me the truth. They have their own nuclear stockpile nobody's ever inspected, ever. It's never been inspected. United Nations made Israel after World War II. It was a war reparation. The only people who gained land after World War II were communist Russia and Zionist Israel. Those were the winners of World War II. That's what your grandfathers died on battlefields for. So don't expect this to go away overnight. There's a reason, they say saving Israel for last. It's a super important country in this world. It also happens to be the powder keg, and they are trying to issue in a prophecy from their doctrine for the times that we live in. The Mashiach, I think Mashiach, that they're calling him, is the Jewish Messiah, which, do some research on that and understand what it is. These are extremely biblical times. These are extremely important times. Elections are elections. You elect an official to make laws. That's it. Make laws. I think Trump will make laws that are suitable for the two things that you're supposed to have. You want a happy and prosperous life. That's all we can ask for from politicians, to give me a chance at a happy and prosperous life. Happy is kind of up to you, right? Your joy comes from God. It comes from the Spirit. Prosperous has a lot to do with laws. Has a lot to do with market conditions, a lot to do with people who want to create a better country, prosperous nation. So I think he'll make us more prosperous, which will maybe make us happier. But at the end of the day, it's up to us. We change society. We are going through a Christian revival. Christians are dying all throughout the world. They're being persecuted in Pakistan. They're being persecuted in multiple nations in the Middle East. They're being persecuted by Israel. They are killing and destroying churches in Gaza. One church stood from the year 444. They just hit it direct with a missile. no regard for the Christian faith. Oh, because they were hiding a terrorist. Those terrorists are probably getting paid by Israel. That's just a fact of the matter. They're invading Lebanon, 40% Christian. They've already destroyed 80 Christian churches there. Some of them are 1,000 years old. So as the body of Christ and followers in this country, this is a Christian nation. We need to take this Christian nation back. This is a Christian nation that was founded by Europeans. No one seems to talk about this because it's like you're ostracized for saying these things. It's not a bad thing. You can say you want a Christian nation back. This is a one nation under God. This is not one nation under Allah. This is not one nation under the Talmud. This is one nation under God by Christians. And Christians need to unify and stand together and really figure out if we deserve a country by God. This is a time for us to repent of our own sins, change our own life, speak life into people, lead them towards God, lead them towards morality, lead their children towards a moral life, show people what a moral life really is, inspire them to live, to be better than they ever thought they could be, live your life in a way that you would never have expected. I look at my life right now and I'm amazed at how it turned out. I'm a completely different person in the last 5 or 6 years. I can be happy in the middle of a blizzard, naked in the middle of the road. Because I understand that the worst thing that can happen on planet Earth is that someone sends me home to God. Like, until we get back to that, we have bigger work to do. So let's get through this election. Let's get Trump in office. I think he's going to set laws that allow us the chance at prosperity and happiness. That's all we can ask for. But if we want to live a fruitful life, a life where generational love is exchanged, where patriotism becomes the main thing. You know, patriotism is the one thing globalists hate. They hate that you love your country. They don't want you to love your country. They don't even want countries to exist. They want borderless land because they can rule and control that. What they can't do is rule and control people who love their country, believe in borders, and who have enough money to live on their own without the government feeding them. That's why I do this show. Money, politics, religion. If you have money, you can be free. If you understand politics, you can be intelligent. And if you understand all those things and you have that, you can focus in on dying in the flesh and living in the spirit. And when you live in the spirit and you die of the flesh, everyone around you gets infected with that. That's what Jesus did, right? It's pretty simple. Show them the way. You can't tell them, you must show them. We hear that all the time. It's time for us to show our fellow countrymen that regardless of who you vote for, we're going to stop calling you names. We're going to stop making fun of you, despite the fact we have every right to call you names and make fun of you. It's time to realize that these people have been led astray and that they're really hurting inside. You look at the two parties, it's pretty simple to see. I mean, all the Democrats that are converting to Republicans are like, I went to a Trump rally and it felt like nothing but love. These people welcomed me in. They're the nicest people. They're salt of the earth. We are the salt of the earth. We're the light of the world. We have other people who don't realize that yet. And they're going to vote for a communist. That's going to happen. Whether you believe it or not, you could say all the dead voters and fake voters for Joe Biden. There are definitely millions and millions of people who voted for Joe Biden. They voted for him because he's not Trump. He didn't vote. Nobody voted for Joe Biden. They voted for not Trump. They're not voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Idiot. They're voting for not Trump. So we have this obligation to understand that this election season, these next 2 weeks, are going to be what they're going to be. The 2 weeks after that, until we know who won, that's going to be what it is. I think this is a good practice ground, a training ground for us to ground ourselves, get a little more moral, and understand that in the next month or so, a lot of people we know are going to have a lot of questions. I don't know what's going to happen. I have gut instinct on things. My gut's been screaming out to me about these topics, and I wanted to make this show very simple, very philosophical as opposed to more data-driven. But just prepare for that. Live good lives. Spend some time tonight and every day in prayer. Meditate. Fast. You know, I think McDonald's also shows you that. Look how obese our country is. How crazy people get over pictures. That's not what a quarter pounder looks like. We just have our priorities all wrong. We just don't understand things. And until somebody comes along and said, listen, this is what priorities are. This is how we're going to behave in victory and defeat. Because if we do that, there is no such thing as defeat. We're just going to win with success. We're going to show the world what success looks like. We are the man in the arena with the ability to change the direction of the morality, of the inspiration, and of the energy of the entire world. And if we take that upon ourselves in the right way and understand that every single one of us ants on the ant farm actually matter and have a job to do, I think we'll make an impact that extends through our neighborhoods, our states, our cities, our country, nations around the world. The world is watching the United States. You are the man in the arena. Gold is the canary in the coal mine. I'm Eric Rice. This has been the Rice Report. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you all. I hope you have an incredible evening, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We're definitely going to be back on tomorrow for a little bit. A much bigger breakdown on the market themselves. A lot of information coming out tomorrow. So God bless you all. God bless your families. God bless this country. Hope to see you again next time on the Rice Report. Have a good night, everyone.